So the story continued after a few days since my first ever space voyage. And one day my mom asked me to go and see our neighbor, to ask him for something, I guess. It also was in July, yeah, it happened in July, at around 10 p.m. So I went to my neighbor, I knocked on his window, but no one actually answered. Then I saw the backyard gate was open and thought maybe someone will show up if I knock on the back door. And I made it to the porch. It got super dark though, so I could notice the lock on the door just a moment before nearly hitting it. And I thought that he wasn't home. I need to go back, I thought. And then I felt like I need to look up. And I looked to the sky. At that particular moment, I wasn't thinking of aliens at all, not to say expecting them to come that soon. I just looked up and saw a flying saucer, and it was heading over me. Yeah, this time it was round, not a triangular like the previous one. A dark round flying saucer with tiny, tiny little windows reflecting the stars and the sky. It was around 6 meters across and only 3 to 4 meters above me. It started getting down to me, and I knew it was Kirkhiton. I knew that he had come over to me. So I waited to see what would happen next. It didn't come closer, but started to move towards our neighbor's backyard. I need to follow it, I thought, and then I ran to see where it would land. It stopped above the neighbor's garden, I guess, and a tiny, tiny little ladder slid out from the floor opening. But the ladder didn't touch the ground, though. I could see the handles to hold on to, and when I came close, really close to the handles, and touched them, they felt more like made of plastic, not a wood or metal. And I climbed up the ladder. It wasn't that high to climb up. And through the hatchway, I got inside the ship. I got inside the flying saucer. Everything was lit up inside there. But from the outside, just from the street, it was all dark. And no one could possibly see this flying scene from the street. And here I'd like to make a sort of remark, because there is no appropriate word for their kind in English, but they prefer to call themselves as spacemen or visitors from Daraal planet. But for us, for human beings, it can be sometimes really difficult to define what kind these spacemen belong to. But the Daraal inhabitants don't tell sentient beings apart. I mean, they have a special word for all the embodied spirits embodied in a physical form, and they call them gopneishie. They are gopneishie, we are gopneishie as well. They see no difference between us and them. The only thing, we live on planet Earth and they live on Daraal. That's why gopneishie is any conscious, sentient spirit embodied on a material plane in a material body. And right you are, the concept of time is also familiar to Daraal spacemen. Of course they have time. The planet orbits the central star within 10 Earth months. Planet's rotation period is 18 Earth hours. They also have specific time units, pretty much the same as we divide days into hours, hours into minutes, minutes into seconds, and so on. Anyway, we all live in a material world, and everyone needs the unity of time to guide through it. By the way, Kirkhiton told me about their intentions and interests here on Earth. But before we talk about it, I'd like to mention the so-called interstellar union of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. The interstellar union consists of 116 civilizations, including those three that basically created us 3 million years ago. They are Burhat, Tumisod, and Selbet. Yes, that's right. They are our direct ancestors. And Daraal spacemen, they didn't take part in our creation, but they are the members of the same interstellar union. In fact, the union was formed by two civilizations, Burhat and Tumisod, and Selbet just helped them with us, if you will. But everything has its own origin. And they explain their origin, the origin of Daraal spacemen, by virtue of their religious concept. You know, they see religion and science as two sides of the same coin. They believe there is a God or a creator. God gave birth to all sentient spirits, including all of us gathered here. But we were in disembodied state on a spiritual plane. In other words, we as spirits were born long before the material universe was created. We just can't remember it. The point is, the Creator gave birth to spirits, but created the material world, and they distinguish it. You see, to give birth is not the same as to create something. To give birth is like to share or transmit a part of oneself. But to create is more to produce something and keep it apart. They give such an example. A human being may give birth to a child, but also a human being may create some material object, draw a picture, or build a house. And I hope all of us can see a difference between a child born by a human and a house built by a human. So I got inside the spaceship through the hatch, and then the hatch disappeared, just like the door on a triangular ship before. And once you blink, it's gone, like it wasn't there at all. The room inside there was round or semicircular. The walls were gray and light. The light was everywhere, and I could see no source of it, as usual. And every other contact with Kirkhiton was on that particular spaceship. And yeah, I saw Kirkhiton just straight after I got inside the ship. And he said, right now we are going to the moon base, and we shall discuss your work as a contactee. Then he made a few steps inside a small hall that hid another room of a smaller size. And again, to the right, there were small chairs, but with semicircular handles. And he said, sit down, and I obeyed and sat down. Right in front of me there were some boxes, and high above them I could see little round windows. The previous triangular ship was gigantic compared to this flying saucer. This saucer was way smaller. While I was inside the triangular ship, some gravity device was on, so I felt the same as if I was on a plane. I felt nothing special, but since the flying saucer is a lot smaller and designated for contactees, they don't have gravity device there. And Kirkhiton once explained, our researchers, he said, studied your psychology, the psychology of human contactees. And they have come to the conclusion, if we take contactees to the ship with gravity on, it will be way harder for them to believe that they are in space. But it was my second time on a spaceship, and I couldn't know that for sure. When he was standing at the control panel, I started to feel like I was falling down. And instinctively, I jumped out from my seat. But instead of landing on my feet, I flew up. I flew really high to the ceiling. It was around 4 meters or higher. And I hit my head on that ceiling. And after it, my head hurt so much. I gave myself a bump on the head as a souvenir from a space ride. Right. But instead of falling to the ground, I somehow stuck in the air. And now realized that it was a zero gravity, like a zero gravity mode on. I stuck there and I was unable to move. Kirkhiton turned around, but he couldn't just turn his head as he didn't have a neck. So he fully turned to me. He saw me like that and came closer. And of course, he came closer. He could walk there, by the way. Due to some magnetic shoes or a whole suit, I guess, that was preventing him from joining my Zero Gravity Losers Club. He took me by the hand and put me back to my seat, saying, "Hold on tight." And that time, I held really, really tight. And Kirkhiton came back to the control panel. But my head was in pain like never before. It was spinning around for some time. And I felt really sick. But not for too long. Kirkhiton told me, "Let's go," and we got off the ship. I followed him all the way down. When I was doing my first steps on the moon, I felt like I was unintentionally jumping instead of walking. I moved so easily, I stepped so lightly, and I asked him, "Where are we now?" It happened that we found ourselves in a cave, a gigantic cave, and he replied, "This is our moon base." It all felt natural there, the temperature, the atmosphere, so we could freely stay inside there without any spacesuits. Once again, the cave was rather bright, but again with no visible sources of light. The floor and the walls were made of stone, I guess. I was certainly breathing air, but it was pretty cool there. The cave was huge, with its ceiling of maybe 20 meters in height. But my steps eventually turned into jumps. And one time I even jumped over Kirkhiton's head. And the gravity wasn't that strong, that's right. I followed him to the wall, to the main wall. The cave over there had a round shape. We came closer and entered some brown door. It opened automatically. We walked a long, narrow, zigzagged corridor, and I could see huge black doors on both sides of it. Kirkhiton opened the second door, and we stepped into a room with no sharp corners. There were no sharp corners at all. It was oval. The walls inside there had greenish color. and there was a table, only without any legs. It seemed like it rose from the floor. It was up to my chest, a strange brown table. There stood another spaceman, but he was looking just like Kirkhiton's doppelganger. Kirkhiton turned to me and said, "Do you agree to be our contactee?" I said, "What does it take?" To do this, he replied, "You now need to give 3 commitments." I asked, "Which ones?" "I will set the place and the time for our regular meetings," he said. Just for the record, my family lived in one of the rural Russian villages with woods everywhere. And Kirkhiton continued, "I will show you the appointed place where you will have to come twice a week in the evening, at the appointed time. I'm intended to show you the planets of the solar system. When you study them all, I will take you to other planets of our galaxy. If you don't come to the appointed place at the appointed time, instead of a real physical contact, we will have 5 mental contacts." "But what's that?" I asked, and he replied, "It is a non-physical way of connection." But unfortunately, that time he didn't go into details. The second commitment, he said, is secrecy. You should not tell anyone about us and our meetings. "Not a single soul, even my mom?" I asked. "You have to understand," he replied, "if you reveal our contacts to the public, they will ask you to show them the proof, and we are not allowed to take such extreme measures due to political and military reasons on your planet. It may also cause life-threatening conditions. But later on, I came out to the world. Even without a solid proof, I talked to people, and I told them my story, and right now I'm telling you the same story. He warned me that if people start to treat you with distrust, he said, we are not to blame." So, eventually, I decided to tell everyone what happened to me because, first of all, I was interested in people's reaction. And secondly, I needed to make sure that I wasn't crazy. Because when you are on your own, when you think of it non-stop, it's just hard. You always have doubts about everything, about your consciousness. When you are fulfilled with information, you need someone to talk to. It's so hard to keep it inside. And it was a difficult time back then. No specialized literature, no cryon, no esoteric literature was available to us. I was told that besides me, Kirkhiton had other contactees, but they are not open to public because they don't want to be considered liars or crazy. And and what about his intentions? Let me explain. The second commitment was about not telling anyone. But this is not strictly prohibited, he said. Of course, you may do it. But if so, be ready for consequences. We shall not provide the evidence of contact. And then I said, okay, I agree. And the third commitment, the last one. This will be a lifelong connection. If you are ready, lie down on the table, and we will implant you the chip. By the way, that was the first time ever I heard the word chip and mental connection. And I said, what is a chip? And Kirkhiton replied, this is a micro device for tracking. When we implant it, I will be able to keep track of what you are doing, where you are going, and who you are communicating with. I will be informed of everything connected with you. This chip will make mental contact possible between us. Otherwise, mental connection is impossible. I'm ready, I said. I went close to the table and put my hands on it. The table was warm. It felt like it was made of a silicon or a velvet. Then I lay down on it. Kirkhiton also introduced the other spaceman. He was from Daraal as well. His name was Kirkhiton. And Kirkhiton said, he will assist me. He does not speak Russian. On my planet, I am the only one who knows your language. I have studied it, because I am the one who contacts you. I've been always amazed that Kirkhiton knows Russian language quite well. Very well indeed. And he speaks with no accent. And the question, where did he study the language? I tell you, he studied our language on Daraal, on their planet. There they have the data from all around the Interstellar Union. They know about our countries, our languages, religions, cultures, science. They have a whole database on our planet. Another alien she is in astral contact with also speaks Russian. His name is Midgaskaus from planet Interstellar, and he is a researcher of what I call esoterism. Right, it is a bioenergy. He can scan people and see their internal vibration frequency. He sees such vibrations in color. He sees all sorts of bacteria. Plus, they are studying our planet, our herbs, our medicine, because they cannot cure our illnesses with their medicines. And their main purpose and goal is to help us grow and develop spiritually. I lay down on the table. Kirkhiton and Kirkhiton stood from both sides of me. I was looking at them, and they were looking at me. And then Kirkhiton touched my forehead. I closed my eyes, and that's all I can remember. I passed out quickly. When I opened my eyes, I don't know for how long I was out to lunch, I was still there on the table. Kirkhiton was right near me. He said, "It is time to get up." Everything went good. I got up and looked at myself. Everything seemed normal. Then I asked, "Where did you implant it?" He said, "We put it under your left rib, under the lower one." "And what does it look like?" I asked. "It is made of organic materials and has a shape of a human hair, 2 millimeters long. So if I take X-rays, it won't be visible, right?" He told me that all types of rays easily pass through it, like X-rays and so on. And continued, "What is more, it cannot be rejected by your body's immune system, and over time, in a few years, it will become a part of your body. It is absolutely safe for you. That is it. From now on, I can watch over you. From now on, you are our contactee."